DART mission was a big success and it was altering the asteroid's orbit. So it proves that humans can actually deflect asteroids and we can save humankind.
Google CEO defending the desk sharing policy that they are introducing right now. And he talks about their offices are looking like ghost town.
Elon Musk, in his endeavor to save money, is cutting bills wherever possible.
Welcome to our weekly tech review, where we explore the latest trends, news and updates from the world of technologies like VR, AR, blockchain, space technologies, AI, social media or consumer electronics. Whether you are a seasoned innovation engineer, a seasoned innovation expert, or just starting in tech, this podcast is the perfect source for staying up to date with the constantly changing world of technology. On camera 3 today, we have Vincent. On camera 2, this is Henrike. On camera 1, hi, I am Tarek. The Tech Review is a collaboration of Ideas Engineering, Free Tech Academy and Upday. And you can watch all episodes on YouTube, or you can listen to us on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts while you work out, drive, or maybe even travel through space. So let's jump directly to the news, and today Henrike is going to start.
What a surprise. And you mentioned space, and now I'm back with a space article. I haven't had that in weeks, I feel. So it's about time. And it's a rather short notice, but we talked about the DART mission last year. So to have it full circle, I thought I'd bring this article from The Verge today because the what were they called? The Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. They released a paper confirming that the DART mission, in fact, was a big success and it was altering the asteroid's orbit. So it proves that humans can actually deflect asteroids and we can save humankind from the dangers from space. So that's already basically the main message of this article. They obviously also have a bit of a summary of what was this mission about, crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid, simple as that. And they concluded as well that the kinetic impactor technique used in the mission could be an effective mean of planetary defense, as they say it. And the debris that was launched from the impact point was actually more contributing to the momentum change than the impact itself. That was also kind of a new finding in that regard. But yeah, we can save ourselves, but it's also mentioned that we need sufficient warning time, ideally decades in advance, or at least several years at a minimum, so that we can really, get active and avoid it. But they also mentioned that as of now, there is no known asteroid that is, becoming a threat for the Earth for at least the next century.
So we're good. We know.
We're good for now, as of now, there's no danger. But yeah.
Yeah, but this was exactly my first thought when you said that this is a very bold statement from, let's say, a product manager, right? We now know that we can save the planet from killer asteroids, but then there's this list of disclaimers, and as long as we are warned decades in advance, and then the asteroid fits exactly this predefined sizes, and right, exactly, and it only contains these materials and has exactly this in-flight vector, but then we can save the planet.
Then we're good. Yeah,
no
and
problem at all.
We now have to make sure as well, right, that we transfer this knowledge to other generations to come. Because if we do not need to become active, then it's nothing like an old paper somewhere at the Johns Hopkins lab. And when it actually, the danger comes, nobody knows what to do. So
Right.
Sorry, Tarek, no.
No, I just want to make a joke. Just like the usual.
Please make it now.
It's like 100 years from now, when the asteroid will hit the Earth, they will find this old paper and they said, hey, Did you know that 100 years from now, we actually found out that we would have been able to divert this asteroid? Good to know. I found it on Reddit. Space Reddit.
A stupid question at that point. I mean, Enrique, yes, never say never, of course. It can always, there are always things we don't know. But usually we have that knowledge in advance, decades, aren't we?
Usually, yes. But yeah, I mean, space is big, and you just have to make sure that you always look in the right direction and you see what's coming. So, I mean, it could happen. And there were some cases where asteroids really passing by the Earth quite at quite a short distance, and not always have they been aware of how close this actually was. So it's really then also a matter of, do we realize it's a danger? Like, we know something is coming, but do we realize that it can actually have impact on Earth or not, and this kind of things? And then being 100% sure decades in advance is probably, it can be difficult still.
I mean, I don't. Now we're back at AI. I don't want to go too deep into that. I mean, it would be interesting to understand, to feed AI with the information that we have from the DART mission and the preparation needed in that time. And I would love to understand what potentially AI, for example, says, how much time we actually need in a moment of crisis, right? So now, I mean, this was just a test, but how many years do we actually need until we can get something off the Earth? Maybe even just months or weeks. I imagine that this is more or less something that we could do if necessary, but I don't have the knowledge for that. And I would love to understand what computers think of our abilities, because just as you said, sometimes you're not aware, it's a human mistake. And this is definitely a field where AI potentially could help us.
Yeah, the question there is what kind of data you feed into this AI to train it. And with this one experiment that we have from the DART mission, it's probably not enough data to actually feed an AI to make better predictions than the one that we just did with this one asteroid. I could imagine that they are already running a lot of simulations exactly with how much explosives do we need if the asteroid has double the size or double the speed or something like that, or has a different trajectory, or what is the emergency plan if we only get 1 year of warning in advance? How can we change the variables to somehow still get out of this without crash?
I mean, explosives were not involved, right? Just because you mentioned it
sure.
now, it was just the impact and yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is the answer to a question that was not asked yet.
No, Tarek, I agree with you that DART mission alone is just not enough to train AI sophisticated or well enough to actually understand how long we need. However, fortunately, I mean, all of the different aspects of the DART mission are things that we do on a very regular basis, right? Flight paths through space are something that we calculate very often. Also involving, I think, up to medium-sized objects. I mean, Mars would be probably the biggest that we actually... I mean, I don't know how Voyager was calculated. I'm pretty sure that, of course, this is data before our time now. Anyways, doesn't matter. What I wanted to say is I think all of these several elements, and it would be interesting to know if, for example, NASA or ESA, or maybe even the Pentagon with its own Space Force, which I think actually exists, not only in the show.
They exist.
Yeah. I would love to know if they potentially are doing something right now. Because, I mean, obviously having an AI trained on the way humans work with elements in space, for a lot of reasons, and not only for a real DART mission, well, I think would be very beneficial for us.
Yeah. I was just thinking about why I was talking about explosives, but this is probably because I saw this interesting documentation with Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck about how they exploded this asteroid and saved the Earth.
That was a good one.
Yeah, this was a great documentation.
Yeah.
If our tech review is valuable for you, please give us feedback with a like or a comment. That would help us tremendously and it wouldn't cost you anything. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, just click on the subscribe button. And now, back to the news. All right. And now, this.
And now, this.
This is me.
Tarek, I really don't think we need the animations and everything back. I think you're doing it very well. It's the second week in a row now we don't have this. And I have to say, I'm really, the way you say it, it's perfect. So maybe add back the overlay on the video. Don't add back the sound.
I will try that.
Although I must say, I really start doubting the random generator actually exists. I think we have the same order of articles for a few episodes now. I don't mind at all. I just like putting it out there.
I can explain this partially because the random generator was created for for 2 weeks in a row. So it still generates a list of 6 articles, and those are randomly generated, and it is a feature that this order is repeating itself for those 2 weeks. So unless I refresh the browser between these two tech reviews that we are doing right now in a row, it will be the same order that we had in the past tech review, unless I press refresh. But I did not reprogram it to have like each individual tech review. That's why right now we are on article number 5 instead of article number 2. It's up here.
Don't get me wrong, I don't mind at all. But that can be then a nice surprise at one point because you can just keep it going for a while and I'm get used to making the start. And then at one point you press the button and everything is random again.
Surprise! It's Chris! And then he appears out of nothing.
And now this.
And now this. All right, let's talk about something more positive, like remote work. I read this very interesting article from CNBC about Google CEO defending the desk sharing policy that they are introducing right now. And he talks about their offices are looking like ghost towns. And this is something that we can probably relate as people who are used to working in big offices, and now since COVID, we are often working from home. And so the offices look way different than before. Google CEO Sundar Pichai defended the cloud unit's new desk sharing policy for their employees. They are downsizing their office space, and their efforts in this direction is called Cloud Office Evolution, or CLOE. And Pichai says that the new policy is just for now for these cloud employees. And he added that the company is giving the teams the freedom to experiment in this direction. The cloud division makes up roughly a quarter of the company's overall workforce. Google expects to incur costs of about $500 million in the current period related to reduced global office space because their office spaces are very expensive. 1/3 of Google Cloud employees are coming into the offices at least 4 times a week. And during the meeting where this was discussed, Pichai addressed employees' concerns regarding the rollout of the desk sharing policy and how it was communicated to the workforce. And Inas Osman, Google's cloud strategy and operations vice president, said that sharing led actually to more productivity and collaboration in this pilot project. So they offer their employees 2 choices. They say you are free to work from home, and we have a pool of seats in the office where you can then choose like freely when you come to the office. Or if you're someone who regularly comes to the office, you can choose to have your fixed space where you sit. And overall, they are trying to reduce their office spaces with this pool of flexible workspaces. And this is an experiment. And I think it's quite an interesting approach to mix this fixed seat policy and this flexible seat policy, and trying to give everyone whatever they want. Because usually I know this feature where they say, everything is remote. We don't have an office anymore because it saves a lot of money. Or the CEOs who say, please, everyone, come back to the office. We want to fill our seats because it's so sad seeing all these empty rows in the office. And basically, I was a little bit confused about this article because in the beginning of this article, they said, when you go into this Google office, it's very sad because nobody's there. It's like a ghost town. But at the same time, they say there are so many people who come to the office 4 days a week. And so everything is fine. But it probably depends on where you work. If you have like a department where everybody's working from home, then of course it's like a ghost town. And they probably are going to address this by compressing everyone. And everyone who comes into the office is then like in one fixed workspace. But these kind of discussions are going to happen now more and more, where COVID is over and now technically everyone could go back to the office if they wanted to.
Wait, Tarek, but so the message is you can work from home and then we have space, but not enough.
Right.
But
so you can basically
is different from reality.
Yeah, I mean, right now, where they had this fixed office space, everyone has their desk. And if now, like, let's say 80% of the people decides to work from home, 80% of the desks are empty. This is a bad situation. But instead of saying we have this global policy of reducing our complete workspace down to 30% or something, this would bring in the danger that if everyone wants to go to the office, it's not enough space. And so they have this flexible policy where they ask their people how they are planning to work. And some say, okay, 20% from home, others say 80% from home. And if they want to have like a fixed desk. So if you want a fixed desk, you can have a fixed desk. And this sounds like a great idea for like a snapshot in time, because then they can organize their offices in the perfect way to have flexible desks wherever they need them. What I think it's dangerous is that if they now reduce their workspace to exactly this perfect situation, workforce is also changing over time, right? So it might be that in 5 years from now, there will be a big trend where everybody enjoys coming back to the office. I mean, it sounds like improbable, but we don't know how like future employees like this, and then they are probably forced to grow again.
It's interesting to see that development. When I asked the question, I forgot how spoiled we are here at Axel Springer because we already are working like that since 2020.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
All of our office buildings are built for, I think, the capacity of 64%. So to us, actually, dear listeners, this is a very normal reality. Besides that, I think what would be interesting to see is what now shared space companies are doing with that. I think WeWork, I don't know how long this is ago. I think 1 year ago, I read how successfully WeWork actually survived during the pandemic. A lot of people thought this is the time when WeWork is crashing, and a lot of other companies like that are crashing. Because nobody goes to the office anymore, right?
Right.
But now we see exactly that, and I think the offer of those companies is getting more and more attractive now, because when you book, say, with WeWork, your office space, and I mean this can be any company. We're not sponsored by WeWork in any way, but if you book your space, your permanent space with WeWork, right, and you are flexible with this, say on a very small time frame. Say a year or maybe 2 years. Exactly what you are saying now, Tarek, or what you're bringing up as an argument is, I agree with you, is not as critical anymore, because every 2 years you can change the amount of seats, drastically up, drastically down, maybe in a margin, whatever. And I think therefore the offering of shared spaces, managed spaces, but B2B, it's always B2B, but I'm saying B2 big B. I think this is getting more and more attractive for companies these days, and even in the future.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to look at the details, because from the larger point of view, it's easily said sounds good and perfect for everyone, but the details are the crucial ones. And as you said, in our office building, we have something similar, and it sounds great. But especially, for example, this regulation of if you want to have a fixed desk, you can have it. This is something that we don't have, or at least not for like regular employees if you don't have like a special function. But some employees, they still live this way. They have all their stuff on their desk and nobody removes it. So de facto, they claim this desk, even though it's not supposed to be claimed, right?
It's the survival of the fittest. This is
this is like a self-regulating system. And the same thing, we all are happy that we are paying less rent because we only have 64% of the desks provided. But then some teams decide, okay, now Wednesday is the office day and everyone has to come to the office, which is a problem if we only have 64% of desks available and people come to the office but can't sit with their colleagues because there's not enough space. So these detailed questions are the ones that are then the hard ones to be answered, even though in theory everything sounds great. And I'm not sure if there is a perfect solution unless you, I have no answer for that.
But I mean, we now live in this kind of scenario for a while, and I think the amount of people in the offices now that COVID is officially or unofficially over, this is probably the busiest our office building will be or will remain. And we never had the situation. I've never heard of a situation where a team decided, okay, we have our team day on Wednesday, we all come to the office, and they couldn't sit together because it always, worked out because others won't come to the office that day or not regularly. And so it always worked for everyone. So it is a potential, risk. But I mean, from our experience here, at least, it wasn't really a problem in practice up until now.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's probably for now a hypothetical problem that in theory it can crash, but in reality it won't. But only with these quotas that we are working with right now. So we said something like 64% is the current quota. This was, I think, even decided before COVID when we talked about flexible office space. Right now we have a new situation where, let's say, 70% of people actually decided to work from home. But this means if we are following the example of Google and creating like new guidelines and we actually sell office space because we don't need it anymore, this could mean that we say the new quota is 30%. So we are reducing the number of desks to the new reality of having 30% of people at the office. And then we are again in a situation where this hypothetical problem can more quickly become a real problem because it's then again optimized for the current workforce. But doesn't make sense to talk in too much hypotheticals. For now, let's just observe how the big companies are dealing with this. But it is true, in the past, it was never this big question of if we can afford office space because we needed office space. But now we can actually talk about saving millions and billions of dollars for office space because only few people are using it. And so it's really, really painful to pay all this money for empty rooms.
I mean, if we only look at this call, 60% of us are using.
Right about 65% of us is sitting at the office.
Even above quota, 66%.
Right.
Look at us.
Not bad. And now, this.
And now, this.
Also another very interesting article I brought this time about Twitter and Elon Musk. And the interesting case here is that Elon Musk, in his endeavor to save money wherever possible, is, as I already think I brought a few weeks ago already, and we discussed it also at length several times, is cutting bills wherever possible. The mantra here, his right hand currently is telling that to every Twitter employee, the mantra is everything is negotiable. Which might be true when we look at this case, but it really depends on who you are negotiating with, and it really depends on how big the other person, the other player is, because Elon currently is in fight with Amazon and was with Google, but realized that Google might be a fish too big for him. So what happened? Twitter has an AWS deal where they actually wanted to transfer their Twitter timeline on. They didn't do that, so they ended up using much less AWS space than anticipated. Now, AWS deals are very specific in the way they are constructed, but basically Twitter committed to an amount of money they have to spend in an amount of time. In the end, this is not completely the reality. There also is a quota on how much you use and that you pay. But all in all, the message is Twitter did not pay its Amazon bill for AWS. This is now being taken that far that actually Amazon is threatening Twitter not to pay their advertising bill, which would be a much bigger loss for Twitter than for Amazon, because Amazon is making, I think, roughly around 500 million with Twitter over a period of time. Advertising alone per year, I think, is 1 billion on Twitter. The same game Elon Musk tried to play with Google, but because Google is such a big player for Twitter in advertising, in data, because Google also pays Twitter for its data so that tweets are findable via Google search, it is much more delicate to negotiate with them. And now a Twitter ex-Twitter insider stepped forward and actually told the information that Elon Musk also tried to renegotiate with Google, but Google simply declined renegotiating a deal they had, more or less knowing that there is no way around Google for Twitter. However, it just shows how they are cutting corners everywhere. And the question is, everything is negotiable, yes, but are there maybe just players or fields you cannot play? I don't know. Maybe they are too big. Let me just look if I forgot anything. I wrote down. No, this is the core of it. So they're actually also playing with the big boys and trying to cut costs there. But Google, it looks like Google is the line. Google is too big for Twitter to mess with them. But Amazon might be.
It's so scary to see how people on this scale are playing this game of, let's see what happens if we don't pay our bill. I mean, I don't know. It sounds so Elon Musk. Everything is negotiable. Sure. I mean, maybe he will win. But as you said, if I mean, it sounds so short-sighted. If AWS, if Amazon actually has, no, Google, you said Google with the advertising, they have such a bigger leverage. What are they thinking?
No, so I think the bet here is that both of them are not only providers and advertisers, both of them are cloud providers. So yeah. I think what Elon Musk currently is thinking about is that, well, the services we are using on AWS are so small that potentially we could transfer everything to Google, so we can mess this up because AWS knows we might lose them as a customer. Also, AWS, now going into the details, is usually open for renegotiation because most of the AWS deals are constructed in this specific way. So you have a more or less committed on amount of money you want to spend on a specific time frame. This, however, is more bound by something like LOI and not bound by a contract, because the core contract is committing you to pay, obviously, what you are using based on a certain amount of money and time frame. Again, however, in the end, you try to, it's more of a, okay, we are expecting you to pay that much, so we're giving you specific conditions. In the past, Amazon showed, or AWS showed, that they are open to renegotiate those terms, but they did not renegotiate with Twitter and Musk yet. Why? The answer for that might be, and it is, I think it is, that AWS knows exactly that technically what Twitter is using of their services is something that they could also find at say Google or even Microsoft, or Oracle, but forget about them in the cloud game. They're that small. However, so they're not really incentivized to actually negotiate with Twitter in that term. However, they have a much bigger stick on their own, which is that they're advertising a lot on Twitter. So I think right now the time of, in Germany would say Zuckerbrot und Peitsche, the time between incentivizing and enforcing is right now, the clock is ticking more in the direction of enforcing, because the upside of winning Twitter as a client is not as big as just threatening in actual commitments they have made in the past. For Google, it's different. I'm sorry, it's a very non-monologue, but I really get heated up when I really got heated up, and I am still when I read this and talk about it. For Google, it's different, right? Google is such a big player for Twitter that Google knows exactly that Musk and Twitter cannot mess around with their relationship, which therefore puts them into the position when Elon Musk knocked at the door of Google's asking for a negotiation, just decline, because they know exactly they have a contract. There's no way of getting out of it, because they know damn well how much Twitter is actually using the services of Google, and the other way around. They know that this is a relationship that is provable a contract, and therefore they know exactly that there's no need for Twitter to renegotiate, or for Google against Twitter. And the same problem Musk has, because he realized, and I think he knew before, he just tried it just for fun, or not just for fun, but for a chance, if you want to call it that. Musk knows this damn well, which is why he did not mess any further with the relationship that he had with Google. And we'll see where it goes. But I think that right now it's still working out when we think about, for example, the rent thing that we discussed a few weeks ago, where Elon Musk is not paying rent, but the companies owning the buildings cannot face a lawsuit that goes that long, so they renegotiate the rent. And I think right now it's working out. I'm really curious to see where it goes. I think that latest when Musk knocks on the door of Apple to renegotiate potentially traffic and financiation that comes via iOS. Twitter is an iOS app, as we all know. I think latest there he will step on toes that are just too big, and we'll see where it goes.
Right.
Have you guys heard, just as a side note, but it perfectly fits to that also Slack was down at Twitter? Because I'm not sure if it was because also they delayed paying and stuff, or if I just dreamed that now that this is about paying bills or not paying bills. But just if you guys have heard something.
I heard of that. I am not sure if this is connected with the paying. However, for example, Salesforce is also one of the parties on the list that have not been paid by Twitter according to their agreement. And Slack and Salesforce are one. So I saw the article. I didn't read it yet. Now I should have. But it happened today, I think, in the morning.
Yeah, once again, I ask myself if this is a brilliant businessman or if Elon Musk is still in the process of running Twitter into the ground. And with this being said, thanks for all of your great contributions and see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.